Okay, there is a lot of cattiness sometimes among African American women. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen in other cultures. I'm not trying to just say it's just all black women, but I'm just focusing on black women in particular because there is some unity with smaller groups or smaller friendships, but like in the larger part of, you know, what was happening back like maybe in the 60s, 70s when it had to do with civil rights and black people and women of color and families, there was more of a unity to fight for rights, equal rights, voting, families, black males, black women, black families, black unity. It just seemed like a lot of that has not happened lately in the way it did back in the days. Um, when you see the many post of fight videos, the culture that we have now where people are like used to seeing people getting their hair pulled and getting their face scratched. And see, this is not a photo where you see this type of stuff. You notice how women embraced, black women of color embraced who they were as people. They didn't, feel insecure about how they look. They embraced their hair texture. They embraced the unity. They fought for black rights. There was more of a struggle to fight together and not against one another. And, I think now, because of the Black Lives Matter and some of the more pressing issues politically that have been going on, you're seeing pockets of people fighting for some of those same rights from back in the days, but not enough. It's not enough, I don't believe. Not enough of what it should be. And you have a lot of cattiness among young women or women of color where, I feel like it has something to do with reality TV. Is it's cute to be rude, to be ignorant, to be mean and malicious and vicious and devious towards one another and talk about each other's color, talk about each other's hair and looks and who you're with, how much money you make or don't make. And there's no unity. And when you see these reality TV shows, a lot of people like looking at that stuff and it sells. It's like fighting and bickering and chaos and gossip sells. And you'll see women, they'll fight over things. Sometimes they'll be sitting right in front of one another and fight over stuff like clothes, men, money, who's popular, who's the best, and it can get pretty brutal. And it's like it's okay to do that on TV. And some people just kind of get off on that. And it's sad because when you see that, it kind of tears people apart, rips people apart, friendships apart. So some of the things that black women fight over, maybe like gossip, men, clothes, looks, popularity, money, success, competition. You'll see famous women doing this a lot. And they kind of are the leader of that mentality because you see it on TV and then all else follows. Women who are not black, they're from different nationalities, they'll fight over some of the same things too. So it's not just black women alone. But women tend to have a gift for gab, and they tend to have a knack to be very good with insulting people and talking about you behind your back. And sometimes words can be very vicious, as if somebody actually stabbed you or something like that. And a lot of times, sometimes your fights between women will start over some gossip. She said this and she said that. And when you see like little gatherings like this, look out. You know, if it's not about a funeral, which they don't look like they're dressed for something like that. If it's not a party, and sometimes you gotta watch the parties because when people start gathering together, they start drinking. Somebody stepped on somebody's shoe. Somebody's looking at somebody's boyfriend. Usually these type of gatherings, they're waiting on somebody to come out. They're threatening somebody. Somebody's getting in a fight or about to get in a fight. And sometimes it's people, they're in neighborhoods, they're poor, the schools aren't good, there's not that much money going into the neighborhoods, there's a lot of problems, social issues. So you'll have maybe more crime and more fighting and more, a lot of aggression from people, one another, and there's not as much unity because people feel kind of hopeless because they're not advancing. And then when somebody is trying to get a car, they're trying to go back to school, people tend to get jealous when they see you trying to do something with yourself. Um, and you can have adults, that get into fights, and sometimes the fights can be extremely vicious, where you wind up, women tend to do the hair pulling, the scratching of the face to try to disfigure you because they know your face is your beauty, of course. That's one of the features about you. And, embarrass you maybe in public. You're nude, pulling off clothes, trying to expose you. And a lot of times these fights will be over like money. It could be over men. It could be over maybe relationships that gone wrong. It could have been friends and something happened between the two of them. It's a number of things. And a lot of times too, people take women for granted. They think that because you're a female, you're weak and that you won't show any aggression, but that's entirely not true. And you'll have like a multitude of fight videos online where people will post these things, and some of these fights sometimes can be staged, believe it or not, because they think this is cute. The culture of fighting is cute, and they think it gives them a come up in popularity in terms of street fighting or whatever. But a lot of times it's a bad look, and then they tend to label people in a specific racial background as being the vicious ones, when there are a lot of people of other nationalities who do the exact same thing. And I've seen that. I've seen whites, Asians, women who are Latina who will get out there. They're in gangs, they'll fight, do some of the same stuff that black women have done. So it's not just a black issue. But these are some girls that were in Las Vegas, and I guess they were in a gang. There was an all-girl gang. So believe it or not, you'll have all-girl gangs, and, just like the males, they can get physical, and they can get involved in crime, steal, pack guns. They'll fight with you, maybe even fight other girls, other women, other dudes, hold a gun up at you, hold you up at gunpoint, rob you. It's a lot of things that can happen. So a lot of times people underestimate women as being weak, and that's not the case. So you have to watch who you're with. And I remember hearing a song from Erica Badu. You gotta pick your friends like you pick your fruit from an apple tree. You have your bad apples and your good apples, so you gotta be careful who you run with, because you don't know if this just a pretty face may not be just a pretty face. So a lot of times it could be something else behind it. So you have to like really wait and see who you're hanging around. And then sometimes people will post things online about somebody. It rubs them the wrong way. At one time I was hearing something called Twitter beefs, where people would say something about somebody online and then they would go look for you. People would post where they live so they could stage a fight, and they would post the fights online. It was really silly and it was immature, but that shows you the level of mentality of some individuals as well. But some people like fighting, they like bickering, they like drama. And I believe some of that has to do with, like I said, like the reality TV, where it seems to like sell, drama. So like males, women can go to jail. They could get locked up, for a number of crimes, extortion, drug dealing. Some people think women won't do none of these things. Oh, they're not, she's not going to do anything. You don't know who you're dealing with. So, some women are a lot different than others. Every woman is not the same. So, So, with that being said, it's just the unity of black women in general. Sometimes I feel that it is not the way it used to be. Although it seems like there's pockets of individuals, black females, who are fighting for the rights of colored people, who are starting to come into a new consciousness or awareness that, hey, all this fighting, all this stuff we've been doing, we've been wasting our time. We really need to fight for things that are worth fighting for, not fighting each other. You know, when there's so many other issues going on in the world that fight against us as people of color. So here you have women that are going to prison, or they're incarcerated or whatever. So women can be incarcerated, they can go to prison, you know, just like the males. And sometimes I like to see um, some of the documentaries that'll talk about some of the experiences these women have. And there's some women, the first thing I notice that women talk about is their children when they're locked away. And you almost want to say, well, why didn't you think about that before you got into these altercations and into this trouble? You know, you're a woman and you're a mother and you have a family to support or to be there. So a lot of times they cry over not being able to be with their family, but this is the reality.